Hey there, listener. Welcome to the Deep Share Podcast. I'm your host, Andy Rouse, and for the last couple of decades, I've slowly been opening my eyes to a very different world than the one I grew up hearing about. And the more conversations I have with interesting people, the more mystifying this world becomes. So without further ado, let's get deep.
We've got science to celebrate! Demons bliss out! After what, baby? Come on!
There is rebellion in the wind. It will crush.
Everything I've said is true. It's real.
Dinosaur fossils? God put those here to test our faith.
A damn lie. I saw them with my own eye.
Did IQs just drop sharply while I was away?
We did illusions, man. None of it is true.
I'm not insane.
This is mass madness, you maniacs. In God's name, you people are the real thing. We are the illusion.
Welcome back to the Deep Share Podcast, everybody. I'm Andy Rouse, and here with me is my homie, Scott White. We're just going to shoot the shit, and it's going to be one of those kind of Friday nights. How's it going, Scott?
It's going well because the house isn't on fire. There's no floods. There's no famine. And I've got cold beer and water to back it up. So I'll be peachy.
Damn right. That sounds perfect.
Balance.
It's Labor Day weekend too. So this is pretty cool. I didn't even think about it. And I have Monday off from work. And I was like, holy shit, like long weekends as a parent, as an adult, like it's just so much more enjoyable, like in my 30s than it ever was before. I fucking love it. Just because there's more time like to focus on home, which I feel like I'm never at home. It's so unfortunate.
Projects, especially when you got kids, you know, it's tricky, you know, but props to you. Like I saw your potato harvest and like, I know you're working on it, you know, you're trying to do your own thing, which is, it's vital these days because you don't want to have the learning curve when you need it. You know what I mean? Like you want to get the mistakes out early.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah. I keep thinking about that more and more because as much as I have learned, there's so much more that I don't know. And that's why like I told my wife too, I want to start talking about it more on the podcast. That we really are absolutely dead serious looking for a fuckload of land right now. Not just us alone. It's not like we're rich as fuck and can do that. We're pretty poor. Like we're still trying to get people together because we're willing to sell our house up here in the Northeast where everything's fucking way overpriced. And we're looking down south where the weather's better. It's a better zone for growing food. You know, there's just a lot of opportunity, it seems. So we're looking into that big time right now. And it's still a long-term plan, but that vaguely is the plan, is to get a shit load of land with a good group of people.
Yes. People, there was a guy, oh gosh, what was his name? Michael Rupert. He was in this documentary called, what was it called? It was about peak oil, essentially. It was about the bell curve of oil production and where it was going to be. The Collapse is what it's called.
Okay.
It's a documentary called The Collapse, and it came out in 2009. And Michael Rupert was talking about that stuff. And he was just like, yeah, so, you know, there's a finite amount of oil in the ground, allegedly. You know, I mean, I've heard some hypotheses that parallel it to a slowly produced substance. So it's hard to say because I'm certainly not in the energy field or anything.
Right.
There's the internet is the internet. So,
yeah, true.
Yeah,
yeah, that is an interesting one. The finite versus slow, you know, constant source of energy. Because I mean, we always want to jump at any opportunity where the elites are lying to us about something epic. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times it seems to be true, you know?
yeah. Especially when you're able to mitigate how much education people have. You know what I mean? So it's really buyer beware when it comes to education, because like dude in Goodwill Hunting said, like your entire education you got at Harvard, you could have gotten for $16 in late fees at the local library. So, you know,
Yeah, I think I'd appreciate that character more these days.
It's a good movie, man.
Oh, yes, it is.
It's got some hang time on the value for certain.
Mhm.
What's unimproved land look like by the acre up there? Because down here in the Lancaster County area, Pennsylvania, it's about 20 grand for unimproved. Or
Up here, man, I couldn't tell you right off the top of my head. We could look some numbers up for sure, though. I know that what we were looking at recently down in Virginia, just to give some perspective, like we're looking south. So we found 18 acres for 15 grand. And there's a stream through it. It's right next to a nice body of water, like a lake or something like that, or a pond. 18 acres where there's 3 legit lots with just a fuck ton of forestry around them. So it's like minimal construction work needed to be done on the lots themselves to begin with. It's pretty nuts. But I mean, of course, there's nothing there. So we're bare bones, like looking to possibly build off grid. You know what I mean? But what we're running into is that every reference on the internet that we're finding is either like fucking architects that are building their own dream homes with all their money that are wicked off grid and self-sustaining, or we're finding forts that I made in the woods when I was a kid next to a construction site, because it's like just anything these hippies find. And they're like, totally. And it's like, all right, my wife and I are both trying to find like a balance between those two. And it's difficult. So I don't know, anybody listening that sees anything or hears anything remotely like I'm talking about, I'm looking for a real way to build a house, that's not, I don't know. It's crazy. I don't know.
Depending on how you want to play it. So I used to live in this place called Yelm, Washington, way back in the 90s. And it's by Olympia, if that's any indicator to anybody out there who doesn't know. And there's a lot of people who were of that mindset even back in the 90s. And so I met people who were living in a yurt, like above ground, canvas, wood stove fireplace, like 3 people up in this like 25 square foot circle, I guess, with slanted roof. Like, and Western Washington gets cold in the wintertime.
Oh, so, yeah. I used to live in Oregon. I know. I
forgot, man. Yeah. You're a fellow PNWer.
I love the Pacific Northwest and I miss it. But yeah, it gets fucking balls cold out there.
Yeah. There's something to be said for spending your childhood in a rainforest.
Yeah. And that would be some serious benefits to that for my son, I'm sure. But at the same time, and it's weird because it's not that I'm trying to give him some sort of like normal quote unquote childhood. He ain't going to have one with me and my wife as parents, but it's like, I don't also want to like rob him of anything. And I don't know if that's my path, not to say that it would, but he loves technology. And as much as I know there's some creepy threats out there within technology itself, I strongly feel like those of us who like honestly have always used the technology as tools, not as extensions of ourselves, we'll forever have that right. We should be able to build tools that we can use, to our benefit. And, I don't know, I'm rambling at this point, but all I mean is that I think we're looking for like legit Earth ships, like that kind of thing. We just don't like how they look because they're everything that people make. Again, it's like insanely rich or very creative.
Yeah. And it's when you have a family, it's a whole other paradigm, like if it's if it's just one dude, like you can do whatever, like nobody cares. Like you can live in a tent under the highway. It's fine.
Yeah. I almost did many times. Like there was times I did.
Couches can be served,
Absolutely. Yeah.
People do these things. That's rad, man. So
yeah, what have you been up to, man? What have you been up to? What have you been thinking about lately?
I've been thinking, so the the disclosure thing's kind of taken a back seat for science for me lately. I've since we've been sequestered for the past couple of years, more or less, I spent a lot of time watching like different TED Talks and stuff. And some of them are really interesting. There was one I watched about this foodie who was doing this TED Talk on foie gras, which is, and he talked about this goose whisperer dude. Have you seen that one?
No, I have not seen a
Like,
goose whisperer. That's
So
great.
like he was this this New York Jewish dude. He's a cook, like top tier cook guy, and he goes to, I want to say it was like Spain or somewhere up in that region. And there was this dude who planted everything that the geese liked, and he was observing them in their natural environment and doing what he could to make them happier. And so he had a certain number of geese, but like there was things that would make these things so happy, the geese so happy, that when other geese were flying over, they'd come down and land because they'd see his geese. And so it was perpetual. And he noticed that like he didn't like the way that they shied away from the fences, electric fence, and he had it on the inside, and he switched it to the outside, and then they were fine. He was talking about the foie gras, which is like this fat that forms on the liver when they gorge themselves for winter. And a lot of people have beef with it, but dude wasn't like force feeding them. He was just giving them the best opportunity that they had to consume what they liked. He's like, I know I tasted pepper in it. He has fucking pepper plants all over the place, and so he's seasoning this shit through the natural means.
That's beautiful.
So it is the most efficient way to like go with the current, and like you can divert it a little bit, go left and go right and whatnot.
Right.
That's the idea, to be with nature, not just fighting against it with concrete and rebar and all that shit. Like,
right.
If I had the money, I'd love to live in it like fucking Hobbit Town or something. Everybody's got their shit in the ground,
Yeah, and like it complicates things like with children and everything, but because like just me and my wife, a year would be fine. We'd figure it out. You know what I mean? Be a plenty fine, but that just complicates things with more people. But man, like the future's looking very interesting. Where with all the amount of ideas of different forms of independence popping up all over the place, I can only imagine what this country is going to look like in 20 years. Like just the physical landscape of what cities and everything looks like. If it all becomes consolidated the way they want into like mega cities with just nothing on the outskirts, just dead towns, I wonder where that will lead.
For a hot minute, I was really concerned about how China had all these like cities that they had built, with no people in them that were vacant. And then like, we're going like a couple years back, and I'm reading about the, New World Order agendas and shit. And I was like, what do you mean population centers? And there's vacant cities here. And I'm just drawing lines. And like, this is not cool. Dude. But fortunately, they decided to start blowing a bunch of that shit up. So
yeah, what the fuck?
I don't know. I guess it's weird. Like, so I guess because China had established, I'm just speculating here. I'm no kind of, authority on the matter. But if you have businesses and economies that thrive on construction and new development, because that's where you think you're going, but then you don't have people who could, to pay that shit off. Like, it's
I guess that could be it. They could have just run into like, they probably did one bad idea, but they multiplied it by like all those towns. Man.
Wild stuff, man.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. So yeah, disclosure's taking a back seat. That's probably a good thing because you've been exploring all kinds of cool shit lately.
So yeah, like I've already accepted the potential that there's other life out there seems pretty obvious to me. And I've had, so once they start talking about people, other or people from other places that look just like you and me, like it kind of changes the paradigm for me to a degree, because like I'd go to Costco. One time I was at Costco with my wife and kids, and I see this dude staring at my daughter in a weird way. Like, dude was platinum blonde. He had like a crew cut, and he was a slim build. He was about my height, but he was just like staring at her and smiling at her. I was like, he was making my trigger finger itchy. I didn't fucking like it. Like, and so I'm like, what the fuck is this? And then like he walks off, and I'm walking around the corner of where the meats are, and I see him with his wife and two kids, right? And his wife is also like platinum blonde with long hair, and there are two kids, a little boy and a girl, long, the girl had
Did he have
platinum
long
blonde
hair too? Like,
No, the boys
okay, his
had
was
crew
short.
cuts and the girls' hair were all long, but they were like all platinum blonde, and there wasn't shit in the cart except for them, and they were already in the back of Costco. You don't get to the back of Costco without picking up a $20 item or something. Like, that's not how
We
it
are
works.
doing human things. How are you?
And I'm like this is fucking weird, man. And like, and in his defense, it could have just been some people who were, blonde or whatever, but
Could always be someone from Sweden. You never know.
it was weird. It was just one of those little, your stomach says like something's up,
Yeah.
like,
I know
maybe
that
I don't.
feeling.
Yeah. So I'd like to follow the
Jeez.
billions of microbes in there that want to stay alive. So,
Yeah,
what I mean?
man. That's a fucking wild experience, dude. I've never had anything up close like that. Like something that gives me pause like that. That's intense,
Yeah.
man.
It wasn't heebie-jeebie or anything. It was just like is he gonna try and grab my kid? I'm gonna have to smoke this dude in Costco and spend like 10 grand in court fees or something. Like, like
He was an alien.
people grabbing happens, man. Like,
Dude,
a
yeah.
lot.
There's tons of
So,
footage out there of that shit. It's terrifying. When they catch, like, they circle the door opening in the back and everything.
Yeah.
Oh, it's all so creepy. I hate it. I
Yeah.
never paid attention to it, obviously. I think that's another huge thing about this whole situation we're in, that we're so divided on so many issues. Not to say there aren't some shithole parents out there. Obviously, there are. But I would say a bigger contingency of the influencers are the ones that either don't have children or are professing to a world without children. You know what I mean? It's that's the core of it, obviously, but it's so hard to speak because I know a lot of people that don't have kids. And I'm not saying everybody's like this, but the ones that don't, that I know, there's a lot out there that just kind of have this apathy that I remember having before being a parent. And I think that plays a big role in everything that's going on. Obviously, it's weird seeing it up close and personal,
Yes. Yeah. And as far as influencers not having kids and stuff, like if I was a younger guy in like my mid-20s and had managed to hit the bubble for that kind of thing and had oodles of money rolling in off that, like my attention probably wouldn't be on that department, but then there's dudes like Ashton Kutcher who, actively takes a role in trying to, stop trafficking and things like that.
That's
too.
true.
So,
that's true.
There's all shades of gray.
Yeah. What do you think about that? That's a totally different topic, but it's interesting. These, like, we have so many conversations about how, like, celebrities in general, like across the board, it's all part of the same sort of situation. Every time you see them, they're acting, and like, it's just a theory, but I like to play with that.
Mm-hmm.
And it does, it bumps right up against the fact that you have people like Ashton Kutcher that or people that get kicked out, I guess you could say, but do we trust that either? It's so weird, What do you think about that?
I think trust is really hard to earn and really easy to lose. So
True.
If, like, I don't necessarily, no, I do not trust Oprah, frankly, or,
of course not.
or like the majority of Hollywood. And there was a dude on New York Patriot. He's got the Occult Rejects, and he was talking about something that I considered before, was how we only see this public face on a camera, and we have no idea what these people's home lives are like, or what their proclivities are, or if it's someone you want to hang out with or not. Like, we build up these stories based on the films we like or who they portray. So it's
all the patterns we see.
Yeah, well, patterns and symbolism and stuff do a doozy on the mind, don't it?
Oh man, yeah, one way or the other. It's pretty wild because, like, I do Think Tank with Andreas Exertus. Scott was with me this week. It was great. It was such a fun episode. It's always fun. And some of the synchronicities that these guys have been talking about on Think Tank are just blowing my mind across the board. There's just so many that I've never considered. And to the point where it's like something is absolutely going on in consciousness here on this planet. And it's undeniable when you see all those crazy examples, but there's no finger to, like, you can't point the finger at anything or anyone, you know what I mean? Like, yes. And it's weird how conspiracy theories kind of feel the same as those. And it's like, where where is the line blur? Like, where is it nature and consciousness, and where is it contrived by humans? You know what I mean? Because
Mhm.
sometimes they blend so, it's so bizarre. What do you think of that?
I'm a firm believer in the 100th monkey effect, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you right, like for the listeners who don't know, the Reader's Digest version is Japanese scientists are studying monkeys and they feed them sweet potatoes. 99 of them are washing their sweet potatoes, and the 100th one starts washing his sweet potatoes. And on an island adjacent to it, other monkeys start doing it just like that, right, on their own.
Right.
And so I suspect, I'm inclined to think that when we have like these 6 umbrella corporations that control most of our television media,
Yep.
are able to put out certain things to feed into the minds of billions of people, or excuse me, millions of Americans, specifically here, right? So,
Yeah.
so that information affects them, and you're getting way more than 100, because everybody's got their flavor, but it's all got some sort of slant to it, whether you like Democrat or Republican. So,
Oh, of course. Yeah.
so when that happens, then it's interesting, because it seems so very often that, well, people say that art imitates life, but the reality of it to me seems very often that the opposite is true, that life will imitate art.
Dude, yeah. It's like the universe is winking back at us so often. And a lot of it doesn't make any sense. And I asked the guys on Think Tank one week, I was like, what does this mean though? Like, we were talking about Kubrick, and a lot of people know a lot of cool, crazy, weird coincidences and synchronicities about Kubrick. And I had heard some, but holy shit, we were just like going to the depths, man. And I'm like, what does it all mean though? Like, what is this suggesting? And the overwhelming idea amongst the group was that it doesn't really have to mean anything. And that is something, I don't think that's all there is to it, but I do think that that is an important point about it in some way, that elucidates more about consciousness or whatever the hell's going on here. If that
I love
makes
that
any
word, by
sense.
the way. Elucidates, fantastic word.
Elucidates.
It's a good one. It's a good
Sounds a little bit like illuminate, so we might have some ears prick up.
one. Good. Pay
Yeah,
attention.
prick those up,
Yeah.
because that's language. That's root language right there, like those phonetics.
Yeah.
Lumen. It comes from the moon, oddly enough. So it's like,
I
what?
I really enjoy when you're getting in on the Bach saga stuff, because
Me too. I
the
love it.
linguistic stuff is really interesting to me. Like, the English language is super fucky. Like,
Dude.
super fucky. Like, are we talking about I or I?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And then beyond that, like, I'll be in conversation with someone, and then I'll have a little micro epiphany about something. I was talking to my dad one day about wanting something, and he's like, no, you desire it. And I was like, desire. I was like, son of a bitch, it's spelled just like desire, to unfather, like to not create, to not have. And I was like, motherfucker,
dude, that's great. I never thought about that one. Desire. Wow.
Like, you sire your children, you create them.
Right.
You don't have, you don't create. So
wow, that's wild. I didn't know that one.
I didn't either until 2 days ago.
Yeah, and we talk about all the different eyes, and then when you think of it, considering Bach saga, it's pronounced E, and that sound is, I guess, associated with God or the source, Udin, but it's also associated with the male penis, and it's also associated with the North Pole and Polaris. It's wild. All these different associations. And it's beautiful hearing like the real Bacchus, the one that knew Eeyore Bach and studied with him or under him. The way they go into all those details is just nuts. We're just doing our best to bring little bits out as we can, but those dudes, man. Whew.
What's dope is the oratorial history, like when things are passed down word to mouth, like tribes in Amazon that never had contact, but they've got legends from thousands of years ago that still pertain. And oh, how'd you find out about ayahuasca? Well, the plants told us.
Right.
Okay.
It's a beautiful story. And what do you think that meant? What do you think that is? Do you think that was a tribe that was already doing it without drugs and was in touch.
So, all right. So I used to watch. I still watch some movies, but not nearly to the extent that I used to. And there's this old movie called A Man Called Horse. Have you seen it?
No, A Man Called Horse.
Good movie about white dudes hooking up with like Native Americans and stuff. Like,
Interesting.
On par with Little Big Man in quality.
Wow,
right?
Okay.
So A Man Called Horse, he gets accepted in, and he's to do this thing called the sun dance. And what the sun dance was is they had a large pole, and they had ropes coming from it, and they put pieces of wood through under his pectoral muscles and his chest, and he just leans back, and you stay in this state of leaning back in agony until you fucking go into a trance and you go out.
Oh my God.
Because your body can't take it anymore. You know, so you
ordeal.
On out.
Yeah, that's what kind of Herman Hesse talks about, ordeal being a path to God too. It's terrifying. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's just the whole thing of the movie that I wanted to break out. Like, so, maybe having a fucking jaguar chase your ass down in the jungle would have a similar effect.
Right?
You know what I mean? So,
dude, yeah, I can see that. I've been really thinking about that a lot because I've heard many perspectives like, well, that was demons, well, that was angels, whatever, or that was extraterrestrials or interdimensional aliens telling them to do it. But when they say the plants, it really does feel like it was like a natural communication, almost like they were just in tune with everything, like you're saying,
they're in harmony essentially with their environment. Like they use what they have around them, and natural medicine and stuff. And
there's an internal language. And it's weird too that like our DNA is scripted out in like some form of a language. Like that always really weirds me out. Have you looked at that? Like our DNA and how it's filled with like prepositions and random half sentences and all kinds of, at some points, it's like, no, I can't remember what the quote was, but it was like all these grammatical and mathematical, linguistic properties of, maybe I'm going a little too much with saying that it was like doing sentences, but like, I wish I could remember the quote, but that it was so complex, the combination of letters and numbers that I guess they use to map the genome. I don't know, but it's just, I don't even know where I was going with I lost it. I'm blowing your mind with like misinterpreted, like badly translated science.
Well, half truths are still part truth, my friend.
Sure.
So,
I'll try to find the article afterwards to show you what I was talking about, but it was.
But you were saying about how it's an internal language, like it's encoded within our very core in each and every cell, right?
Yeah. I think that's.
And there's like a 99% similarity between the human and the banana, or the human and the fish, right? As far as the DNA goes, or something to that effect.
Probably, yeah.
If I recall, it's from science, and it's not like science has ever been wrong before. So
science is always wrong, and that's the whole point. Like that, like literally, like on a long enough time scale, every scientist has pretty much been wrong on some level. Even if they got a few things right, they got a lot wrong, and other scientists had to come along. So it's really never been about that. It's weird. We have to. I think it's a convenient thing to do in this slow-moving, dense time that we're in consciousness, because science can stay true for a long enough time period. You know what I mean? If we had much longer time period lives, maybe we would look at scientific discovery differently. I don't know.
Yes, I would say so. Geez. So how do I put it? So if it's befuddling.
Yeah, man. I've been just like all over the place lately, not even sure what I've been wanting to dive deeper into, because like I've been so interested in the language stuff that it's kind of, I've been seeing that in every category I look at, kind of. So maybe that's where that whole thought came from. But
well, that's the truth, man. So I was on a Twitter space the other day. Might have been yesterday, and someone was talking about how like repeating numbers, like angel numbers, and other people have experiences. Let's just call it an experience, and then they start seeing numbers all over the place too.
Mm-hmm.
And there, for me, I don't ever remember seeing a Pontiac G6 on the road until I bought one, and then they were fucking everywhere.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like once you become aware of something, you'll start seeing it more often. So if you were to consider that maybe that there are people not necessarily from the same rock or from other places within layers of this rock that are around, maybe you'd start seeing them more.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah, it's interesting. As a younger person, I always, like many, scoff at the idea that if you pay attention to the paranormal, it would pay attention to you, and skepticism doesn't work. It's like, well, yeah, that's the biggest cop out ever. And it's so bizarre. It still is to this day to acknowledge how opposite it really is, that whatever you give your attention to is what's going to persist. But also whatever you ignore. Right. I mean, my friend Lindsay from Rogueways pointed this out to me one time. I said something like that, and she kind of came back with like, well, also think about all the things you ignore. They will persist until you face them. I was like, wow, okay, yeah, cool. So both those statements are true. So it's paradoxical, of course.
Yeah, sorry, man. Like,
No, it's all good.
Crouch goblins are going around, and so I'm trying to keep it professional, quasi-professional. Go on up, thank you. And so oftentimes, like I was thinking of what you were just saying, and when it comes to people ignoring things, especially when it comes to things that irk people about other people, like, is it me or is everybody stepping on everybody's sentences? You know what I mean? And oftentimes these are traits that we have within ourselves that we don't necessarily want to look at. And once you start digesting that and owning it, like, oh, maybe I'm not always a nice person. Maybe sometimes I am a dickhead or
Right.
whatever. I know I'm a dickhead.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
So
my wife tells me too sometimes. My grounding point.
yes, that's good. They're there to help us with that. If you get a good one,
Yeah, right. Exactly.
And it's important to admit, when you're wrong, I suppose would be a good way to put it. You know what I mean? Because I'm on my second marriage, so that means I've been wrong before, and I'll probably be wrong again at some point. So that's okay. It's okay to be wrong, because it's an opportunity to learn. And the most painful and or expensive lessons are the ones best learned.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah. Well, my wife and I were on a string for a while where it was like every time we came into a good amount of money for whatever reason, or we saved a lot or something, we're like, wow. And we would acknowledge it. We must not have been in the right place energetically, because it's like immediately a necessity needed to be met that was unexpected. Like, oh, the car, this or that. And suddenly it's like, oh, well, yeah, good thing we saved all that money. And now it's gone. So it's like you have to try to put the smile on. Like, look, a positive thing happened. They collided.
There's this company called Despair Inc. And they make these things called demotivational posters. And,
I remember those.
They're so great. There was one, it was this giant picture of an ice cream. It's just, remember, just when you think you've found all your problems, remember you've only seen the tip. Like, it can always be worse. There's this beautiful bouquet of French fries in a red container, symbolic of something in particular there in McDonald's. Mm-hmm. And it said, because not everybody gets to be an astronaut. So, and I'm comfortably in the middle. Like, I think if I were to be frozen for like a couple thousand years, you could call me not sure.
Yeah, that'd be fun. For those who haven't seen Idiocracy, you need to go see it. It's like at this point, I think it's a classic. Probably came out in like 2009, or I don't even know. It's pretty old now, but
almost a documentary at this point.
I was saying that it started out as a documentary and now it's a horror movie. because it's like did you ever see, this is one of my favorites, have you ever seen Into the Mouth of, or In the Mouth of Madness?
Mhm.
Sam Neill, that's a
Yeah.
John Carpenter movie. The ending where Sam Neill is just insane and he's cackling and laughing watching his own misfortunes on the screen. Yeah, that's what that feels like, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Do you read oh god, what was his name? Do you read something Hutcher? He Sees You or something? Oh, what was it?
He Sees You. I don't
Yeah.
know.
With the
Doesn't sound
dogs.
familiar.
It's from the In the Mouth of Madness. Do you read Sam
Oh,
Cain?
oh, yes, Sutter Kane. Sutter Kane.
Sutter
Yeah.
Kane, because he sees
right.
you.
Yeah. That was great. Yeah. Do you see it? It sees you. Oh man, that movie's
Yeah.
so fucking great. Those movies, I think In the Mouth of Madness kind of doesn't get talked about often outside of movie nerddom. You know what I mean? But like in conspiracy land, like that movie is super interesting because it's all about this guy manifesting all these dark, nightmarish fantasies in this one. He even creates the town around him, which was incredible. Like, oh man, I got to go back and watch that shit.
How Lovecraftian was it too, right? Like,
yeah, it was almost like an ode to Lovecraft, right? Yeah, because he called them the ancient ones or the old ones or something.
That shit's constantly being referenced, man. Like Hellboy, like all the old gods out there frozen in crystals in space and shit. And
dude, you know, and I think about it like just to play with it in terms of the Bach saga and God becoming this term used for the northerners that were coming down from all these different areas or to all these different areas. And so it's like, if those are the old gods and all of that is being pushed into narratives in movies and everything, and it is, oh my God, it's all about the old coming back and taking over, which is really bizarre when you think about the other angle to all the messaging and everything we see from the elites and what they're literally doing is this new way and this new world order, this breaking away from all the old. I don't know how to make sense of that yet. And I think some people will just fall off and go, they just make chaos for you, man. It's like, no. This is organized. They're not creative enough for this. So, you know what I mean? What do you think of that?
I think there used to be a world for world order, and I thought it was empire. You know, essentially. So the English had one, the Ottomans had one. Shit. I don't know, man. There's a lot to it.
But I don't get it. Like, it is like you know how we had this whole archaic revival talked about in the 80s and 70s and everything, and it's slowly coming back. I think it involves like the psychedelics becoming more accepted and everything, but like, who is someone orchestrating the archaic revival? Is the old way coming back about these? Is this the hidden elites? Is that what me and my friends and everybody who talks about Bach Saga is unknowingly slowly bringing to light or something? I wonder.
So I don't remember who was talking about it, but somebody had mentioned, like, why is it I'm watching like the History or Discovery Channel and I'm seeing shit like swamp people hunting alligators and like
Alaskan truckers,
Naked and Afraid, and not that these shows don't have entertainment and like back pocket anecdotal survival information value, but
survival ones,
you know, to push that so much on TV, you know, like, don't get me twisted, like I've been on that shit for a hot minute. I mean,
we all love it, right?
Look behind me, you know.
Yeah, I see it. Nice gas mask. I like it.
It's gonna do me no good with all this.
Yeah, you got to shave in the apocalypse.
I know, fuck that noise, dude. I did it.
Honey, grab my Norelco.
Man, but so like, what if there were to be, as a mental exercise, to say that this is the same thing that repeats, rinse, wash, and repeat over and over again throughout history? Like, you have groups that become more technologically advanced, and then they gear up the rest of them to fucking start all over again. Like, hey, you ready to go hunt some alligators with a spear?
Right.
Okay, good, because you're going to need that shit. and then they take off in their fancy dancy stuff, and then something bad happens and most people survive. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
It almost tastes like the time machine, where the Morlocks went underground for a real long time, then came back up and started eating the other ones.
Right. And we already have lots of underground tales of the people like the Mayans being, I believe, saved by the ant people, or maybe that wasn't the Mayans. I'm gonna
think I want to say
was.
that's accurate. Like that
Could be.
I want to say that
sometimes.
but
yeah, we have the stories of these underground peoples that like saved the ones on the surface from calamity at certain times. It is interesting. There's so many different angles to play with at this point. I mean, here we are in a time period where things are clearly being revealed on one level, like access to things are becoming easier for better or worse. I don't know why, we got the government pushing fake fucking disclosure. I mean, to a big degree, it's obviously fake. So I'm not sure what they're trying to get ahead of necessarily. It's just, we're literally living out the individual digging up all of his old traumas. Like, we're literally doing that as a species, it seems, or at least in this country. But I wonder, as you say, the cycles, how many times have we maybe done this before, and yet we all went back to dust and the pyramids were buried and everything. So like, I don't know. Do you think we're the first ones that are going to be aware of what's going on? Or do you think even that's part of the cycle?
I would say it's probably part of the cycle. So like, anytime you want to fix a problem, you first have to acknowledge there is one. So if you're starting to become cognizant that there's some hanky stuff going on, that might be part of the development. It could also, I mean, because I don't know, like the Earth's really old, and I think it would be pretty cocky to be like, oh yeah, we're the first ones to fucking see that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, you're right. Yeah.
No.
It's just, the reason why I ask and why it's a hot topic in my mind is that to think that us getting everything revealed or something uncovered is going to prepare us when all the old way, like if we were here at one point before, why could we not, you know what I mean? And maybe this ties into the traditional, not the one I accept, but the traditional form of the Atlantis story. Like, it fell from the inside out and we really had an opportunity to save ourselves, but it went the other way. There's got to be some truth. There's always truth in urban legends, right? I don't know.
Well, there's always opportunities to save ourselves. Like, I could have quit smoking 20 years earlier, but I didn't,
Right. Yeah, I could have just not become an alcoholic, right? Yeah.
Or pick it, so like, it's a matter of decisions, but also we tend as humans, in my opinion, to make the best decision we can with the information that we have available. So if we don't have good information available, like, I don't know, let's say like 1950s, 9 out of 10 doctors smoke Camel cigarettes because they're the best for you.
Right.
Science. Hi.
Yep. Science.
So, like the toilet paper shortage, I have a family member who works for, I want to say it's Safeway and Albertsons. And he was telling me that the toilet paper shortage was entirely consumer manufactured because people were just being told by the magic speaking box that there's going to be a run on toilet paper. You're not going to be able to get it. You better go out and get it while you can. And people weren't pooping any more than they were normally, So when there's nothing on the shelves, we need more. And Charmin didn't budge. Good on them. They were like, no, we're not going to increase production. We're just going to keep it up, and it all balanced out. But it seems like there's a lot of poking and prodding and testing on populations in general at all times, just to see
social scales.
We could talk about the big one for the past couple of years, but let's not.
No, I don't like to usually. But I mean, it's always in context of what's happened in the past couple of years. Obviously, it's hard not to avoid that anyway, because it's not necessarily a bad thing that's happened, in my opinion. Well, I mean, relatively speaking, with the information I have, right? It's like,
Yes.
we wouldn't be talking today. I wouldn't have done any of this. You know, my wife wouldn't have done all the things that she's done. It's unreal what has happened over the past couple of years to everyone, for better or worse, right? It can go
Yeah.
one way or the other, but what it's going to do, that was the turning point. It seemed like maybe it was the start of the rollout of the new world order, but maybe it was also, the moment where we coalesced into, like, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I feel like there was a lot of good in the past couple of years that came about because of all the bad.
Well, sometimes you need to have a shadow in order to see light. You know what I mean? Like, you got to be in Plato's cave staring at the fire and shadows before you can crawl outside and see that there's a lot more going on.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of the philosophy stuff that I like in that regards is that, old young Alan Watts talking about the two fish,
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily that one's bad,
Right.
I mean, the lion's not bad for eating the gazelle or the spider for eating the fly. It's just part of what is. And so it's a matter of being able to, I guess, survive long enough to pass on your genes and then teach that to the next generation too, so that they don't get all fucked up about it. But teenagers have to go through what they have to go through, and 20-year-olds have to go through what they have to go through. And
so
when my teenager left, when my teenager became a teenager, I called my mother and apologized for my teenage years.
Right.
It's like, Mom, I'm sorry I was such a shit. Like, I know it must have been something. So sorry about that. And made a good chuckle.
Yeah, my wife and I joke a lot about how much karma we have coming at us in that department. But we used to say that. But, I mean, maybe it's inevitable to some degree. I mean, kids are kids no matter fucking what. Yes. And it's part of becoming, an individual, regardless. So, but we always used to joke that because I was such a shithead and my son was going to be like so rebellious. And it turns out he's really not, but it's also because we're so aware of our own bad behaviors from the past and how we want to parent differently and what we know now as a culture, compared to what our parents knew. Oh my God. And that must happen to every generation, but maybe it only feels different or special to us. I don't know. I was having this conversation a little while ago with my wife about the difference in the leap between all the generations that we remember in the past century versus the leap for us and our children. And again, it might be the ego, right? Not just mine, but just me in the culture in this generation feeling special, right? Because it's from my perspective. But at the same time, I don't know. I look around and I've always asked myself, if I had a kid, why does it feel inside of me that I won't be teaching him almost any of the same lessons that my father taught me and that his grandfather taught him, and so on down the line. And those weird confusions in the past few years as a parent have kind of become more clear of what that meant. And it does seem like the world is changing so much that even the things that our parents taught us are almost going to be not relevant. And maybe that's how far into the indoctrination you allow children to go, vice versa. I don't know. Am I making sense? I'm kind of all
no, definitely. No, not at all. No, I'm following your train of thought concisely. Cool. It used to be that everybody had horses and only rich people had cars. Now everybody's got cars and only rich people have horses, right? And so,
wow.
when your great grandfather was doing the daily thing, feeding the horse and moving the poop and stuff, that was just part of life. And now you know how to change your oil, you know how to change your tire, right? There is definitely a paradigm shift that goes on, And so when we came up in a transient stage, I want to say, because we weren't entirely analog, but we're not nowhere near where we are right now, and certainly not where we're going to be
Right.
for whatever the fuck that's going to be. My dad, I want to say it was like the 50s, late 50s or 60s. Dick Tracy. Remember Dick Tracy?
Yeah.
All right. His big deal, he had a two-way radio and a wristwatch. I have this.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We don't even have to say what that is anymore for those that aren't watching. Like,
dude,
they know exactly what we're talking about.
Let's say in 400 years, there's technology to go back and forth through time, and someone comes out and they're holding this, and you're talking to a Mayan. Like, how the fuck do you interpret this without a frame of reference? You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but as far as being able to like teach your kids stuff, like there's always going to be stuff that you're going to be able to teach them that's going to be beneficial. You know, there's always something that's going to carry forward because of your proximity to the, the change.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned. That's
absolutely. Yeah, no, it's that we're gonna, it's almost, it feels like we are destined to learn and teach almost simultaneously in our generation, with the world as it's, especially for maybe it's people like us where we're outside the lines and we're not just going to become this infantile, they're going to do everything for us, which kind of has always been going on in this society. It's just never been to this extreme, so it wasn't obvious. So we're going the outside, right? We try to go away from that as much as possible. And that being said, it's like we're going to face a lot of different situations than a lot of our generations prior to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Especially if whatever this disclosure kerfuffle brings out, if nothing else, it brings out technology that's been worked on behind the scenes that didn't have an infrastructure to back it up.
Right.
If it does come out now, it's going to be a bigger paradigm shift than the internet by far, whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's pure speculation.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of how I feel, that it will be something to that degree. It'll be like, quote unquote, all dreams coming true kind of technology that won't be slow rolled anymore. He'll just be like, yeah, it's come to like a crescendo point almost, where it's, I don't know. It would almost seem like, I don't know. I guess I'm thinking out loud back and forth here, because it's like, on the other hand, the elites always want something to dangle in front of us. So giving over that free energy will never really be a thing under this government or paradigm. You know what I mean? So like, what would they possibly, that's the thing about the UFO community, man. Like, listen, just give us the technology and shut up about all your blah, blah, blah. Like all these infighting and the politics and the talking heads. And it's like, they're not going to give technology to you. You're going to get it just the same way you have for the past 50 years. So yeah, I guess I changed my mind on that. Like, yeah, there is not going to be some like free energy point given out. Like, I don't know what kind of evil parasite fucks like we're dealing with would ever be able to gain in that situation. I don't know.
Not free in any, perhaps free without some kind of currency exchange, but not free in regards to it not costing you anything. Like, you're going to have to do something for it, like whether it be take an RFID chip or, right, just be like, oh, well, okay, I won't own anything, but I get everything. And all I have to do is go to work every day. And, they get to dictate how I live my life. Or I could go live and fucking hunt alligators, you know what I mean?
Right, on the outskirts.
So, yeah. So
do you think they would allow for even so maybe they're just like, what would they do with a group of humans, a large group, the majority, that buy their agenda, get everything they're asked to get, skip forward 50 years, 20 years, whatever, they got chips all in them and they're all hooked up to every social media thing through their holographic interface, whatever it becomes, right? Like, I don't see any end game in the elites plan in that case. And in that case, we kind of have to look at it from almost a totally non-conspiratorial perspective, because I feel like they do have an end game in, if you do look at it conspiratorial, right? If there's shit going on and there's some group of elites that have been around through generations somehow, or whatever that is, like a thing passed down through the family or something, there's got to be some end game they want to get to, right? I don't know. What do you think?
What
I
if
see you
the
kinda
end
lighting up.
game? What if the end game isn't so much like a destination, but more of a sustainability of their position?
Okay, like an undeniable, unwavering.
Yeah, like we're the pharaohs from here on out, and you're gonna fix the robots, and we're gonna hunt some of you every year or whatever the fuck they get off on.
Ooh, nice.
You know what I mean?
So do you think we'll go back towards, so I say this, I've been saying this often lately, that it's like the agenda has been esoteric and hidden, occult, for all this time in this civilized newer world of America. The old world seems to have been exoteric, where everyone knew they were under the thumb of a kingdom and they were shit if they were peasant. You know what I mean? It was not hidden.
Yes.
It was out there in the open that this is the monarchy, this is the royalty, this is over you.
Yes.
And do they want to get back there? Do you think that might have been what happened? Like they lost control because of that, but they want to make it so they don't have to hide anymore?
I don't see why not. So if you were to just look at the state of the national debt, whatever the fuck that is, when you got a bank that just prints money out of air.
Fucking right.
You know what I mean? So when it's serfdom, it's serfdom. Like
Absolutely.
But personally, I'd almost rather just be working outside doing shit than be stuck in cubicle hell. Like that's,
Well, of course.
And so, God, it's a not an easy scaled away kind of thing.
That's true.
Me,
That's true.
But yeah, they love it, dude. I mean, they still essentially do whatever they want to do. Like Epstein wasn't really one of them, but dude ended up making a lot of money and having money and doing doing whatever the fuck he wanted to do on his private island and private properties. And I'm sure that's not a isolated case, just
Right.
on statistics.
What do you think about the theory that Epstein was a created character? And I know that sounds pretty bizarre, maybe for some listeners even, but just the idea that some of it was kind of creepy, how like the island was filled with like paper mache temples and shit like that. And like nothing was real or anything on the island. That was kind of weird. Did you hear anything about that?
I did not. Like as
Dude.
a created character?
So like not as in he was CGI necessarily.
No,
I'm sure some have gone to those extremes and maybe believe that, but I've heard it proposed and I don't necessarily completely disagree with the proposal that whoever the fuck he was, he played a part, he played a role,
Persona.
yeah, that needed to happen for some reason. It's weird. I feel like I need to take psychedelics and like look into all the conspiracies that are going on right now. I feel like I'd maybe get like a couple extra dimensions on something.
Like
I'd come back and be like, it's the lizards.
I've never had one of those all the way breakthrough things. I've had some cool experiences, but never like disappearing or merging with other stuff. But then again, most of the time my eyes have been open when I've taken them. I usually do it at night because it's the time I enjoy to do it around a campfire, outdoor nature settings and stuff.
I'm right there with you.
But I laid down last time I did it, and I closed my eyes for maybe 15 or 20 minutes and just chilled. And that was a little different than usual. Yeah, like it was like because so when you close your eyes for I think it's like 5 minutes, like steady anyway, your brain frequencies start to change anyhow. And so when you compound that with something that's going to have communication between places that don't usually get communication, maybe there's some other stuff happening there. But
That's
that was a
for
little
sure.
more fun. Maybe I'll go to a state where that stuff's legal and I'll play around with that again, you know, because I would never advocate for anybody to break laws or anything like that. It would just be silly.
Right, sure.
Yeah.
And or takes like I don't recommend it necessarily to anybody.
No,
You know,
no,
it's
especially if you have
intense.
you
Got a lot
know,
of unresolved issues. Oof.
sensitivities, or you're not securing yourself itself. If you're an insecure person, I would absolutely recommend you not do it until you start digesting some of that stuff.
Oh
Personally.
yeah. It's so heavy. And no matter what it is, it's going to be heavy. But I did find that and I heard Terrence McKenna say this, of course, after I had done my first trip. It's the only reason why I was listening to him, was trying to figure out what the fuck had happened to me. But he said psilocybin seems to be really easy on beginners. And I was like, wow, that
Yeah, I could
hits
see that.
home, because my first trip, I literally felt like I was in Alice in Wonderland. I was in childhood bliss, absolute wonder, revelation after revelation after revelation of like the world was a lot, like everything was perfect. And, you know, I came down, tears rolling down my face. You know, everything was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
Then I tried to take it like 3 days later. And I guess psilocybin tolerance is pretty intense in certain cases.
Mm.
And I barely tripped. So it was like this low, not a micro dose, but just like a about to go forever. And it was the most anxious, like anxiety ridden, horrible feeling the whole time. But it was easy on beginners, but it made me feel like the second time around was like a negative learning experience rather than a blissful, you know, it's almost like the mushrooms invited me in and then gave me the lessons afterwards.
Yeah, come in this dark room. I want to show you something.
Yeah, it's beautiful in
Yeah.
here. Check it out. Yeah, stay a while.
Yeah.
And then suddenly
I saw Joe Rogan do that at DMT, the Spirit Molecule documentary, years ago, and I was just like, that's something I'd love to try in like a clinical setting, because the way people were describing it, like, yeah, there's this bar of light extending from the center of my chest and it shot out the top of my head. Like, what the fuck does that feel like?
Right.
You know, what's that all about? And then talking to I don't know what. I don't have any frame of reference for that stuff. So that's that sorry, whoops, up stuff that one day I'll get there, I think.
What's amazing to me, and I don't know if it's like impossible. I just haven't really heard anybody honestly say that they could do it, you know what I mean? But like to bring it all back with you seems to be impossible to me. At least like there's something that you're always leaving out that makes it so amazing. And I think that's the whole point. It's interesting that seems to happen often, where it's like it kind of relates to how there's like many different religions still in the modern world, where it's like, yeah, people are having their own experience that kind of pulls a piece of them personally into it. You know what I mean?
And there's no your experience is your own. That you can explain kind of what you're seeing or experiencing, but there is no there are no words for it. Like if you had the ability to project your emotions, it would probably be a far more accurate depiction of the kind of things that people go through in those experiences from where I'm sitting. You know what I mean? Because yeah, a song is a song doesn't mean shit to the average person, but to Terrence McKenna, yeah,
I love that reference.
So
yeah, man, that song, I love that example because it's so perfect. It's that like you can literally find the meaning of life in like a stool that's just sitting on the ground, you know, or like a piece of trash. If you look at it long enough, you're like, oh, it's everything.
Mm-hmm. Yep, it's everything you're focused on at minimum. And beyond that, it's part of everything else too. Like it used to be a tree, which used to be a seed, which used to be part of another tree, and they're both growing in the ground of the earth, and they all drink water. And water is a whole other thing. We could do a whole show on water sometime.
Yeah, dude. I can't remember his name, but I'm sure you've seen the experiments done where like a scientist wrote different things on jars of water and stuff like that.
Emoto.
You know, yeah, Emoto. Yeah, there. Yeah,
Mhm.
that shit was amazing. That was mind blowing. And
That's
yeah, go
wild.
ahead.
There's another woman. Oh geez. She goes by the Water Whisperer, and I'm blanking her name right now. So I hope she doesn't get offended.
Let's get her name.
Yeah, she was on Gen Zed with Dave and Rio.
Oh, cool.
Diane something, I want to say. The Water Whisperer.
Yeah.
And she's taken it over kind of from where he was at, and has implemented some other stuff, because when Emoto took over, apparently she was saying that he moved into a very population dense area, and the electro smog had effects on the water freezing and what it would do.
Wow.
And she's able to draw like images out of it. And it jacks me up, because I have kids, so I've seen Frozen 1,000 times. And when the little snowman's talking about, oh, the thing about cucumbers, no, the water thing, like, oh yeah, water has memory, and it's been through at least 7 animals before you got to it. Like we're water, like everything in these cells, we're like, by the molecules, I think we're like 98% water.
That's
right?
nuts. I thought it was like 78%.
Well, it is, but then like when you consider that the parts of the other aspects are still water too, like there's moisture and iron and moisture and
that's right
things,
wow.
So
Jesus.
Like molecularly we're almost all water, and so you get it out. Even when you exhale, you're losing moisture, right? So that's right. You breathe through your nose most of the time. If you exhale through your mouth, you expose more water, and so we're constantly interacting with our environment in a method that allows for communication with
that's you're muted, Scott.
Oh, my bad.
You're good.
Maybe that's just me being weird, to that degree, but
no.
Water's life, and so here we are doing all kinds of fucky shit.
No, you're right, man. It's interesting. I can't remember exactly what was said, but someone was talking about water the other day and how moist the air always is, like, and there's arid, dry places and everything, but in general there is moisture in the air, we are in water still, right?
It's just another phase of water. So if you take water and you boil it, when it becomes steam, it expands to 17,000 times its size and volume.
Whoa.
It's a fun fact, right?
That's pretty wild.
1,000 times its size and volume when you turn it from a liquid to a gas. You ever have a campfire and accidentally have a river rock lining it?
Yeah. I mean, what do you mean? Like,
so when you have a rock that's been in water for a long time, it absorbs water. And so when you have it next to a fire, that water starts to expand, and these rocks will fucking explode on you.
Holy shit. No, I haven't. But I've had rocks crack in half at fire pits. Mm-hmm. Never knew that might have possibly been it, because there was a stream near our fucking fire pit. So yeah, maybe.
Yeah, the moisture permeates the stone, and then it expands, and that shit will literally explode. I mean, I used to live on the Deschutes River in Washington State, and so we do it.
That's pretty wild, man.
Yeah. It
I was in Deschutes County, Oregon. That's pretty nice.
It's in the water, if you remember Olympia beer, because that's probably of an age.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
But yeah, the water's dope. I have to count years sometimes.
Yeah, dude. I literally do that on the pod. I'll go to say my age. I'm like, am I 36 or 37? Am I 38? My wife would be able to tell me. Oh, well, I'm in there somewhere.
Yeah, I get it wrong sometimes. And my wife will call me stupid and correct me, and that's fine.
It's just trivial.
Yeah. What is time? What's, it's
that's the 41. Thing. It's all happening at once. My wife wants to see that fucking movie, that was it Everything All at Once or whatever? I have no idea. It
Mm.
looks like quantum physics dumbed down to like new age spirituality or something. I don't know.
There's a really good 2-hour documentary called Inner Worlds, Outer Worlds that you can find on YouTube. And I like that one a lot. It talks
I've
about
heard of that.
Daedra's web, where everything is fractalized. Like you can look
Daedra's
in
web.
one bead on the spider web and you can see the reflection of every other bead within it. And so
Yes.
it's theretofore it's all connected. You know,
Oh, I'm totally watching that shit, man. If
Oh,
I haven't
it's-
already.
it's a banger. It's
Because
an absolute
Indra's
banger.
web itself is a beautiful, beautiful metaphor. I love that whole thing. And actually, just to shamelessly plug a great fucking podcast when I have the chance, a podcast I've listened to for a very long time, Mike and Maurice's Mind Escape. They created their own social media before any of this crazy censorship started going on. They just wanted to get away from the I guess the ridicule of misunderstanding on the part of like psychedelics and, you know, near death experience, things like that. So they created Indra's Web, and I think it's indrasweb.org, but I'm going to check it out right now just to be sure. Indra's Web, just in case people are looking for other alternatives. I remember signing up to this a long time. Yeah, indrasweb.org. Check it out sometime because it's a mindful social media network, you know, open to, you know, paranormal, UFO, all of us people that love that kind of stuff. But it's like it's run by a couple of really good guys.
Dope.
Yeah, definitely check into it. And I haven't been on there in a while because I'm just bad at keeping up with a lot of social media things.
There's so many
Sometimes,
hours in the
but-
day, man. You
I do
know,
it, but
You're
you
doing
know.
the best you can with what you got. And that's all anybody can ask of anyone else.
Yeah, like I recently made a couple clips for an episode. I haven't done that in like 20 episodes. And I'm like, I need to do this more because this is just like, it's fun for me too. I enjoy creating fun little clips and shit. I think if I wasn't a podcaster, I probably would have gone that route and just like done it for others or tried to anyway. But,
And there's a lot of web developers out there. You know?
oh, hell yeah, man.
Oh,
Oh man, but it's been really cool, like just sitting here and shooting the shit finally with you, just one-on-one, because we've done some deep thinking on some podcasts together, but like it's always been broken up with a big group and everything. But and I'm gonna drag you onto another one pretty soon, I think. To
I'm
talk,
for it,
talk
man.
about some disclosure shit. But you know, like we could preface here with like, you know, what my interest in your angle of disclosure and that kind of thing is I think you have a better understanding of like, I want to say like frequency and things like that than I do. I've always appreciated like a lot of the things that you've posted and stuff like that. And yeah, I appreciate you know, having a great perspective on all this stuff. And so, yeah, thanks for coming on here, man.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I'm honored to be on here. I do like the science stuff because, you know, it's interesting. I used to be an atheist and then I started to really get into science and it brought me back into there's something else bigger.
That's awesome.
You know what I mean? I was like, nah, that's all bullshit. Like the Bible, all of it.
Of course.
Fuck that noise, you know, because, you know, dickhead teenage boy, you know.
Yeah, you dispute the guy in the cloud story, of course.
I still don't buy Santa Claus in the clouds. I don't buy that. Something else, something bigger, overarching, you know, something perhaps non-comprehensible by like a single human mind. Yeah. All right. I buy that.
What aspect of science or personal discovery was it that kind of turned you on or turned you back towards that idea?
God, I don't know if I can really point to any one thing.
Could have been a series of things.
A lot of things. Like just a series of synchronicities. You know, which I mean, it's so cliche at this point to say, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Like they're just, you know, when just that kind of thing. The frequency stuff, like when we look at the electromagnetic spectrum and we inhabit this much of it, you know what I mean? This is what we see. And we have a red, a blue, and a green cone, and then rods in our eyes. And then, you know, these things here, and we get to make the mouth sounds and whatnot, taste, touch, and that's it. And to say that so if you can't see it, it doesn't exist. Well, there's all this still. Like,
Right.
that's bullshit, frankly.
Oh, absolutely.
So, there's a lot that we can't see and interact with, but it doesn't mean it's not there.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting too how the establishment mindset, I guess you could say, portrays those realms we can't see, because we could even just be talking about, very normal thing that you can't see, and it's all just, it's background, it doesn't matter, it's not important at all, so you're not missing anything, right? Like, well, what do I need to see infrared for? You know what I mean? But, well, I mean, just as like that's not going to give you any mind-blowing experience necessarily, right? But like,
Right.
this, I think it's because inside the body itself, that's the main limiting factor right there, is that we are seeing everything from this perspective. Even if we have technology that can enhance it, it doesn't even touch it, because we're still stuck in this perspective.
Yeah. The frame of reference that you've developed your entire life, right? Your personality and persona, and people are like, well, I was talking to somebody and I can't remember what exactly I was going through. Like, well, how can you be you before anything? I was like, well, you were still you before, when you were in the womb. Like, you had a relationship with your mother, and you came out of the womb. You don't have words yet, but you still are you. So
yeah, dude,
there's all kinds of stuff we could.
I think about that a lot, that whole 9 months that we spend in, not necessarily paradise. I mean, this physical trauma that can happen outside, of course, but like, I think the archetype of it is, traditionally, I think enough of us have had wonderful 9-month periods in a womb to ingrain and imprint on us, not to discredit heaven or an afterlife or eternity or anything, but just in every form of how we describe those things in an egoic way, it does seem to maybe represent a time that we were only able to be within ourselves, because when I've tripped balls, I'm going to places in my head, right? And it's not like some weird random thought process. I'm going to like places and things and times inside of me, in my consciousness, that I haven't seen since I was like 2 years old. Like, I don't know if anyone out there's had those experiences on psychedelics or other things, but I have, like, I even had it taking a real big rip of weed a few weeks ago, and I got too high for a couple minutes. And that's when I kind of have weird, quote unquote, acid flashbacks, where I'll have a memory come back from a trip that was suppressed after the trip was done. And a lot of them come back as like places. They look like places, but they're places that I occupied when I was a very, 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 very little kid. Even if it was something I saw in real life, it was the memory of existing there in my mental life. And it gives me chills, man, because you find out how many billions of years and time, whatever, it doesn't even matter, you've existed. And that's all mental during this conscious life on this earth.
Just this one, what I mean?
This one.
Yeah.
Was that vivid enough? Because I think I hope people out there have had that experience of like literal places that you used to go to in your dreaming head, or imagination, or whatever, characters. Oh, crazy. I can't remember them now.
I remember my mom changing my diaper. I remember arching my butt up off the ground so that she could slide the freshie up under me.
Dude, that's
what
nuts.
I mean?
Yes,
yeah.
I do know. I do understand.
I couldn't always do that. It only, like, the past couple of years, like, I just been able to unlock some old shit. Wow. So what's cool is your left hemisphere is your logic, mathematics, and reasoning side, right? And that's the filter for your right hemisphere, which is your subconscious, and what I think is just the fucking hard drive that's recording everything that you see, hear, smell, touch, all your senses, all your experiences. It's in there somewhere.
Dude, I totally agree. And I think somewhere on that side is also one hell of a fucking writer, a director, a producer. Like there is some majesties of like everything. And maybe this is just me. I have a lot of mental blocks when it comes to like imagining and visualizing things. So the utter freedom of these fully fleshed out, got anything you can think of instantaneously. I do remember that from psychedelics as well. And it's like, what does this say about the brain? What does this say about consciousness? Like it's fucking mind blowing, man. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, documented cases of kids getting born with, memories of soldiers who died in World War II. There was a woman who remembered living in like Akhenaten's palace and shit.
Yes.
Like,
yeah. My wife told me about that one.
Lots of stuff, dude. So, I mean,
the kid that was born on Mars.
Oh shit, I didn't hear about that.
Oh yeah, it's a Russian one, a little Russian kid.
Of course, it's a Russian kid,
right? I think it was the 80s. This kid was. I'll send you a link afterwards, man. It's this whole thing where he gave detailed memories, and I think, of course, there was something in there that he shouldn't have been able to know. And it's like, oh, that's why it's remained pretty suspicious. It's kind of like the Betty and Barney Hill thing, right? Like, how the fuck did Betty map out a part of the sky that she would never have known, and NASA hadn't figured out for until a few years later. So it's just one of those things, man. It's always one of those things. What do they call one of those little things? I don't know.
A sexton.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I was just asking. I asked Nick West that the other day. I was in a UFO thing on Twitter there, and he was just like, "Oh, he's talking about the degrees from the horizon. You can measure it using your thumb." I was like, "I got a fat thumb, dude. Like, I don't know if that's gonna work. Like, like it's not all. That doesn't sound very scientific." And I'm not trying to knock, dude. Like, he's doing his own thing, and I'm glad that he's being as diligent as he is and whatnot. Because it is what it is. But I was like, well, could you use, like, not everybody's got a sexton or a saxton. I don't remember how it's pronounced.
I think sexton. Yeah.
So I was like, well, could you use like a pencil compass, like, because it's got the degrees on there, if like you were able to get it. And he was like, he poo-pooed me. He's like, no, it's too short. And he's like, but if you were to take a level in your iPhone, and I was like, but that's like the same length.
What the
So I was like, okay, that's fine.
That's enough science for me today.
That's good. I'll stick to my frequencies and waves and just suspended judgment on what's up with what. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not concrete on anything, because by not being certain on anything, it leaves everything open.
Yeah. I try to be concrete and it never works out. Sorry, go ahead.
Nah. I mean, I get hard sometimes, but nah.
Yeah, like I am with the Bach saga lately. It's hard to look away from some of it that all matches up, especially linguistically. That's the craziest part, connecting the different cultures and finding these traditions in other places, and like, oh, they have their own reasons for doing this. It's like, well, okay, fine, but it's really way too coincidental that they're doing it at all. Like, and using the same symbols, and and it's nuts. So yeah, it's hard to remain skeptical when you get so invested in something and you get so excited about it sometimes, but it's so important to just still be open-minded. Like I always say, I want more debate about the saga. I want more debate about everything. I don't like that I have friends that are absolutely concrete sure the earth is flat. I love you guys, but at the same time, come on, nothing is concrete ever in this fucking place, and just to say that the deceit stops with the elite humans that we deal with. And I'm not even talking aliens. I'm talking nature, right? I'm talking about consciousness and how this place is set up. Our egos themselves are tricksters. They trick us out of everything. The collective ego is probably no different, but you have to believe in that first to begin with, right?
Yeah. Which, I mean, I you could throw me in that group, I guess. I like the 100th monkey thing, so You know,
I agree too. Yeah.
There's some kind of a gestalt overlaying kind of thing, you know, and that's why you go through some areas and you're like, oh, it doesn't feel good here, you know.
Yeah.
And you go to other areas, it's like, oh, this is kind of a nice place.
Good vibes, bad
You know?
vibes.
Which I was just talking to my dad about that maybe today. And I was just like, dude, it's so funny to me that even though the whole 60s, like a hippie psychedelic thing may have been like a CIA kind of maneuver, but at the same time, they're talking about vibrations. And through my studies on TED Talks and hearing all these lettered scientists talk about frequency and vibration and how that interacts with us, and there's entrainment where, you know, vibrations line up for the same reason that pendulums on a unstable surface will synchronize up with each other. Yes. And furthermore, a bunch of women living together will also sync up together.
Yep, their cycles match up.
It's a thing, you know, and we are who we hang around with generally. And so I'm very honored to be hanging around with you, because though we're far apart.
Yeah, likewise, brother, man. This has been awesome, and I know we're going to do it a bunch. And I really love your setup. I love the mic you got. It's looking great, man. So I think you're destined to either do your own show or just keep pod hopping as much as you can, because I love your perspective, and yeah, please keep bringing it back to us. Scott, please.
Hopping.
Yeah, like pod hopping.
I like that. Is that a thing? Is that a term?
I just said it. I don't know.
Put that shit on a t-shirt, dude.
Pod hopper. It sounds like a jam band.
It does.
That's probably where it is. It may not be a thing in the podcasting world. It's probably just a jam band.
That's hilarious. Yeah, they opened for Fish.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Them, and then Mo, and then Fish. It was just a beautiful show. Scott, tell my listeners where they can find you if they're not already hanging out with you online sometimes with me.
Yeah, I'll be around here a bit, everybody. I'm also, you find me sometimes on Generation Zed and his Patreon there. And you can find me on Twitter at Curiosus Animus. I recently corrected my weirdo Instagram handle, so that's Curiosus Animus as well now. And
nice.
It's the same on YouTube. But YouTube, you'll just mostly see me pulling triggers and a couple of videos from Iraq, and that's about it. There's that kind of stuff. So
hell yeah, awesome.
It's been a blast. Thanks for having me on, Andy.
Dude. And I had you're welcome, man. I appreciate you coming on. And I kind of went into this saying, like, I'm literally just going to shoot the shit with my buddy. I had no really ulterior motive on I had no idea what we were going to talk about or anything tonight. And a lot's been on my mind. So many different things that I didn't really know where to focus tonight. So I'm glad you were along for the ride. You were able to keep up with my ADD.
Oh, well, we're simpatico in that. Yeah, I got that too. So
it's a hidden talent, man.
Brilliant motherfuckers have that, it seems.
I think there's a lot of training involved. You can like work it out the right way. It can work for you. It can be an absolute disaster too, though.
Yes.
It's like I will clean and do this and do that and do a million things other than the one thing that I'm supposed to do sometimes all day long. So it has its ups and downs, right? But
I couldn't tell you how many times my wife said, I gave you a list, right? Things you're supposed to be doing today.
Like, I made that list into such an amazingly beautiful list in the computer, and I'm going to print it out now.
Nice.
All right, everybody. Man. Scott, thanks again for being here. Everybody, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Tune in next time.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Deep Share Podcast. If you want to hear more, then hit that subscribe button. Follow me on all the social places, and remember, think for yourself, but don't always believe what you think. Till next time.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, vegetarian. Enough, I get the point.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature. And you will atone.
What do we know?
What do we know? If I know what we know, then I can tell you what we know, and if someone else knows, okay? I mean...